Members of the House and Senate return to Washington next week after their holiday break, and one of their top priorities will be to see if both sides can finally agree on a COVID-19 stimulus bill.
But can Congress get it done in a lame duck session? News Nation correspondent Joe Khalil joins us now live from Washington with more. Joe.
Yeah, and some of the lawmakers that have been public about what they want to see done between this Thanksgiving holiday period and the Christmas holiday period, because there's not going to be a lot of time in there. Many of them have said that they want to see a COVID bill at least begun, or at least the negotiations to be restarted. But again, that's the big question. Is there the political will to do that? And how does an incoming Biden administration change that? We are in this lame duck session now in between the election and when the people who won their races take their seats. So that does sort of change the dynamic. Now, we've heard nothing from the White House since Election Day. We know that at least a week before Election Day, there was talk between the White House's chief negotiators, primarily Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, and also we heard from the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows that they were in touch with Democratic congressional leaders, with Nancy Pelosi and with Chuck Schumer. But again, now that we're in this lame duck session, how does that change? Does the Biden administration coming in change the negotiating dynamic with Republicans in Congress? Well, we talked to the House GOP leader, Kevin McCarthy, about this. Here's what he had to say about potentially working with Democrats now and with an incoming Biden administration, whether or not he thinks a COVID relief deal can be reached.
I'm just hopeful that with the election aside now, that Nancy would put politics aside and put the American public first. Because I do know there are enough votes inside the House, if she didn't hold them up, to get a COVID relief package. And I can work with anyone who's willing to work on those issues and put the country first.
Now, we actually did hear from President-elect Biden on this issue. He met with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He also met with Chuck Schumer to talk about, the potential for a deal and working with Republicans. And in his Thanksgiving address, he addressed the issue of the bipartisanship that would be necessary to get a deal done. President-elect Joe Biden said that we're in a state right now where our politics simply don't allow for both sides to come together and work out a deal. But a big pillar of his campaign has been reaching out to the other side. He's hoping that that dynamic changes. Here's what President-elect Biden said in his Thanksgiving address.
Reason, not hyperpartisanship. Light, not heat. You want us to hear one another again, see one another again, respect one another again. You want Democrats and Republicans and independents to come together and work together. And that, my friends, is what I'm determined to do.
There was reporting earlier this week that the Biden team was putting pressure on Speaker Pelosi and Senator Chuck Schumer to get a deal with Republicans, even if it meant going lower than what they had been proposing, which was a $2.2 trillion stimulus deal. We recently heard the Biden transition team come out and say that that reporting was inaccurate, and a representative for the Biden transition team said that President-elect Joe Biden is fully behind the leadership of Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer as they move forward with their negotiations. Reporting live tonight in Washington, D.C., Joe Khalil, News Nation.